Hello, welcome, it's Crafty Carol here with another little video for you as part of my Christmas countdown. And this time we're not going to make these cards. This is actually a set from an old project kit which I discovered in the bottom of a drawer, so I thought I'd better finish it up and make them. But it's made up 6 cards and 6 envelopes, and I want to make a box for them so that I can give them away as a present at Christmas. So I wanted to show you how I go about measuring to make sure that I've got the right sized box. So the first thing I'm going to do is get a piece of the Stampin' Up grid paper, because it's going to be easier for you, I think, to see. I can obviously use my glass mat, but you wouldn't see it so well. I'm going to just place them down so that I've got a little bit of room right on that corner where it's one here, so one going up here and going up here, because then I can simply read off. So for this width, use my pointy tool so you can see, I'm going to make it slightly bigger than the cards. So 12 looks like really good for a width, and if we go up at the top here, it comes more or less up to the 15, so I think I'm going to allow 15.5. So those are the first measurements that we want to take. So I can write those down. Let me write them on here so you can see, and I have written them here. So 15.5 is the height of the box, 12 as the width of the box, and then to get the depth, we're going to measure sideways. So we lift them up to get the depth of the box. Again, place them down in that corner. I hope there's not too much shadow so that you can actually see that. And again, read it off. So 2 would be probably okay, actually. I think I'm probably going to go with 2. They're a little bit pushed, so I might push a lid off. Perhaps 2.5 might be better. So I think we might go for 2.5, which would give a little bit of room because there is some depth on these. I have used some dimensionals. So that gives us 3 figures here, 15.5 by 12 by 2.5. But that is not the size of the paper you want. When you make a box, let me bring in a clear bit so you can see. A box has obviously a base, so we know our base size. So if I draw a base out, which is not to scale and not very square, but you get the idea. We have measured that this distance here should be 12, and this height here needs to be 15.5. Measuring in centimetres. If you want to measure it in inches, you can do exactly the same on the other side. I'll show you in a minute. And then we measured the depth as 2.5 centimetres, which means that if we're going to make a box, then I need that amount on each of these sides. So each side here will need to be an extra 2.5 centimetres wide. That's not very well drawn, but you get the idea, yeah? So that when we cut our piece of card, we need to cut it wide enough so that we have enough each side and each end for the depth of the box. So these will be score lines when we come to make the box. So in order to work out how big a piece of card we need for the box, this is for the base, and then we'll do a similar card for the assembly piece for the top. I'll explain that in a minute. So this is for the base. So I'll write base on here. So that's 12 there plus 2.5 each side. So 2.5 each side is 5 in total. So our total width of card needs to be 17 that way. Yes, 12 plus 2.5 plus 2.5. So that's 17. And we have to do the same thing here. So that's 15.5, because each of these are 2.5. Just write that in so it's clear. So 15.5 plus 2.5 is 18, plus another 2.5 is 20.5. So our full depth for the card is 20.5. Okay, so the piece of card we need in order to make this box is 20.5 centimetres by 17 centimetres, scored all 4 sides at 2.5 centimetres. Okay. Then for the lid, I like my lid not to be exactly the same size as the box. So I want to make the lid, I'll draw it out again. it'll have to be slightly smaller because I've used up so much paper. But if I draw it out, there's my basic 12 by 17. And for the lid, I'm going to just add 1.5. So that will be 1.5 in each direction. So that would look like that again. So that's 1.5 there, 1.5. So that's 12 plus 1.5 plus 1.5, which is 3. So that's 15. So the total width there would need to be 15. And the depth, sorry, 17 I put there, 15.5. So 15.5 plus 1.5 plus 1.5, which is 3. So the total depth here is 18.5. So the base needs to be 20.5 by 17, scored at 2.5. The top needs to be 15 by 18.5, whichever way around you do it, scored at 1.5, all 4 sides. Now, when we come to do that scoring, if you want these to fit really nicely, then to be honest, with a box where the cards are on top, which are slightly smaller than an envelope, it won't matter because the top will fit. But in general, I would do the 1.5 score at probably 1.45. I'd just be on the sort of slightly less side of it, just very, very slightly, because that will just make it that little bit bigger, the lid, so it fits on. I like my lids to fit quite snugly. If you have them too wide, you'd need to add another belly band or something, so be careful about that. So it's just about 1.5, but being on the sort of slightly on the right hand side of the measurement, so that the lower side of the measurement, so it's about 1.45, and that will be perfect, which I will show you in a bit. So if you wanted to measure this in inches, then you simply use the other side of the Stampin' Up paper and you do exactly the same. So in inches, just to give you those, that would be, I would go 4.5 inches by 6 inches, so that would be 4.5 by 6. That's inches. I'll write it like that. 4.5 by 6 inches. And then the depth, doing it exactly the same way. 1 inch would do. I'd probably go 1.25 just to allow for a little bit of wriggle room. So 1 to 1.25. So either 1 or 1.25 inch depth. So to work it out again, 4.5 by 6. Plus 1.25 each side. So that's 6, 4.5, plus 1, 1.25, something like that. Say 1.25 each side. So 1.25 plus 1.25, because we want it here 2, is 2.5. So 4.5 plus 2.5 is 7. So that needs to be 7 inches. Hope I got that maths right. 4.5, 5, 7, yes. 7 that way, and 6 plus 2.5 is 8.5. So it would need to be 7 by 8.5 for the box base. And then if you made the top 3/4 of an inch, then so that would be the base is 8.5 inches by 7 inches, and then the top 4.5 plus 1.5 is 6. 6 plus 1.5 is 7.5. But that's how you do it. You do exactly the same for inches as you would for centimetres. So let me go and get the card and we will make up a box. Okay, so I've cut my 2 pieces that I need. So I've chosen crumb cake. I did go, my favourite colour, what can I say? So this is my crumb cake piece. And if you remember, that was 20.5 by 17, and I've scored on all 4 sides at 2.5, as per my working out. And my top is 15 by 18.5, scored at a scant 1.5 on all 4 sides. So I'm going to go ahead and make up the box, and these are made up in exactly the same way as we would normally make a box. So first of all, folding and burnishing on all 4 sides for each piece. So to make up the box base and the top, we're simply going to make some tabs at the end. So I'm going to just cut along the crease line that I've made, and then we'll make sure it's actually along the crease line. There we go. And then I'm just going to mitre in the corner there and just take off a little smidgen from the outside one as well. And I'm going to do that on all the other corners. So cut up and then mitre. That's two ends. I'm going to do the same this end. Now you can just alternate them, so one goes in and one goes out. I like my boxes to look neat, so I always have the tabs the same, if you like. So these are going to go from the ends down the sides. I prefer to have the bulk, so that the tab itself down the side of the box, because there's a little bit more give there, and I think it makes it fit together better. It gives you, otherwise you can get a little bit too much bulk at the corners. So see, it's up to you. That's totally a choice that you can make for yourself. So that's my first box piece, and I'm going to actually use just an old fast fuse or stamp and seal here, and I just want to put a little bit on each of the tabs. So we'll start in this corner. So folding it in, and the key is when you're folding it, make sure that these corners, this side is exactly square, because we've done the measurements. We don't want it to be any different than the measurements that we've made. So we must make sure that it's square and that it doesn't stick out, because then the lid won't fit. So that's the first end done. Do the same with the second end. So there's my box base, and we can test it, of course, make sure it's the right size by just putting the cards and envelopes in, and yes, that fits really nicely. I don't like them to be too tight. People have got to reach in to get them out, so I like to leave a little bit of room in my boxes. Then we do the same thing for the lid. Now, the only difference is for the lid, I'm going to decorate it before I make it up, because it's much easier. And what I've done for this is that I have cut a piece of, this is an old retired paper. I think it was Celebration a couple of years ago, but I'm going, because it's gold and white, it matches the rest of my cards, so I'm going to have that in the centre. And then I've just stamped and embossed this sort of topper that'll go on with dimensionals in the middle. I haven't decided. I might put I might put a little bit of ribbon underneath it. Let's see, but let's stick this bit on first. So this is just, as I say, a paper that matches. You know, it depends what cards you're making the box for. Match the colours and match the style so that it all looks like a whole and doesn't look something different, you know, you just decided to throw together at the last minute. I do like things to look coordinated. So there is the first bit. Now, shall I put some ribbon on? I found some old gold ribbon here, and I think I might have a little bit of ribbon either coming out of there or going across. No, I think just coming out of there will be fine. So chop a bit of that, and I'm not measuring this, and then I shall put that on just using a little bit of my tear and tape. So I want that roughly in the middle, say there. Lost my pokey tool, there we go. So then I can take off the top of that and use that to stick my ribbon where I want it. So I want it to come out looking like that. So I need it to stick down there, which is fine. And then I can stick this on top using some dimensionals. As always, I get dimensional tops everywhere. I find them in the bathroom. I don't know about you. They go everywhere in the house. So we'll just have that. It's more or less in the centre of the lid. So there I've made up my lid first. Now I'm going to make the lid itself in exactly the same way as I did. Another little bit of card stuck on the scissors. In exactly the same way as I did the top. So this time I put these going down the length side. So this time I'm going to put the tabs on the end of the long sides going in here. So I'm not doubling up where I'm putting the depth, the extra depth, if that makes a little bit of sense. So again, just taking out the tiniest little bit from each side and do the same on all of the corners. So there are all my tabs. So now it is just a matter of sticking them down in just the same way as we did the others. This fast fuse is running out, so that's okay. Means I can use my stamp and seal very soon, which I'll be glad about. It's better than fast fuse. So I'll do this one first. So again, making sure that these corners line up properly. It's so, so important. So there's my box lid. And now the test. And look at that, it fits on the box and it's not going to fall off, which is great. So it's just fitting beautifully. So I hope that that gives you some ideas for making a box. If you've got your own something that you want to send, you can use this for anything. Obviously it only makes square or rectangular boxes. How you make funny other shapes is another whole series of videos that I'd need to do. But for just making a rectangular present and making a box for a rectangular present, hopefully that's given you some ideas how to do it. So thanks for joining me. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And if you want more information on this, then please go to my website at craftycarolscards.co.uk and have a look at the blog where there's a bit more information. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.